Hey everyone, welcome to the very first episode of Make It Better. We are doing a little bit of switch up from the previous with Manufacturing Live, but there are a couple things that we need to take from the old days over to the new episode. First, we are live, so if you have questions, feel free to check in and put in your comments and we'll try to get them answered. But we are going to focus a little bit on how we can go through that design to manufacturing process. And we're very lucky because today we have two guys that have spent decades helping companies make products better, faster, cheaper. We have Kirk and Kevin from Ellison Technologies. Guys, come on in. Let's jump into this. And we're always going to start with the most basic thing. Tell us who you are and what you do.
Hey, good morning. I'm Kirk Knight, president of Ellison Technologies for Texas and Louisiana.
I'm Kevin Flanagan, past president, currently serving as advisor to Kirk and the team here in Texas, and also part of a development group that's looking into the digital transformation from a corporate standpoint.
Awesome. So you guys made that really short. We've had quite a few conversations over the last 6+ months or so, and you guys spend an enormous amount of time helping customers make things better. So can we talk a little bit about the process of what Ellison does to help their customers today? And more importantly, what is it that Ellison does? What does Ellison do? I should probably phrase that correctly.
Yeah, if you don't mind, Mike, I'll kick that off. A real special year for us at Ellison, as it's our 70th anniversary. The company was founded by Jim Ellison's father in 1955. And in 1970, Jim took over the company and set it up in Los Angeles as Ellison Machinery, as we now know it, Ellison Technologies. In 1975, being the visionary and outgoing person that he was, customer support, he set it up where we would have customers getting service and application support at a local level. He was the first person in the country to do this at a distribution level because most of that had been done in the past by the factories. And as time went on, he took that philosophy and grew it throughout a good part of the United States to where we are now. It's grown to 17 locations, but it still operates under the same principles, which were founded by Jim and written actually what we call the Ellison Way. It's 8 principles by which we all follow and we all subscribe to. So it keeps it consistent, the way we run all our divisions, and it gets us autonomy and how we handle people locally, but it also gets us in the same ideals going forward. The final piece, and a big piece that we added, was in 2021 when we added GSC as a software partner. And what that has brought, it's allowed us now to get into the enterprise aspect of customer solutions. So before, they would come to us for their machine needs. Now we can talk to them about operational.
In addition to that, on the current level, everybody, as Kevin mentioned, we're national. We have 17 offices around the country, over 400 employees. This location makes up for about 10% of that, roughly 40 employees. And our mission with our customers is to equip manufacturers to compete and win both locally and globally. Okay, and how do we do that? We don't just supply machines. We offer engineering, automation, integration, service, and parts, as well as the full gamut to provide that for the customer. The best way to, like Kevin's point, is to help them adapt to new manufacturing process. That's principle number 2 in the Ellison Way. So.
Okay, the Ellison Way, I love that. I'm gonna have to figure out how all that works, because we're gonna be down there next week with you guys talking a little bit about Factory of the Future and things like that that are gonna be set up. But I do want to I want to dig a little bit deeper into some of the topics you guys just talked about. You talked about you guys have grown and you have lots of locations nationally, and due to that, you probably see lots of different challenges depending upon the region of where you're at across the U.S. as far as the specific markets that you cover and how you support those customers. Can you talk a little bit about how you guys approach the process to help a company in California versus a company in Texas versus a company in Wisconsin, and sort of like the niche markets that you guys support? Because obviously we can all make products, but each part of the world has a little bit different components on how they manufacture and compete.
Yeah, great question, Mike. So from our Seattle office down to the Carolinas, from California to Texas to Minnesota, as you mentioned, all markets are different, right? So with the depth of our product line with DN Solutions, we feel we can cover that. And usually how we get in and we start those projects, if you will, or the process, is we have our engineering as part of the group. We're connected at the hip, if you will, and make joint calls with our engineering teams as we venture into these projects. And it's basically from ground zero to help these customers. And they might be doing it a certain way. Our objective is to change that so they can save money, make money, and avoid risk.
To add to that, as we said, each of the locations has a facility like this. So it's a good place for our customers to come. They can get hands-on equipment. They can get hands-on talking to our engineers, although we go to their places as well. But what we found is it also is very good for entry level. We have the capabilities to go in at an entry level, a guy doing a startup with product breadth and capabilities, all the way up through a greenfield or a factory redo, or work with their enterprise systems, and anywhere in between. So it's really about, I think, following a process that's compatible, frankly, in all areas, because we really put the customer first, we put their needs first, and then we figure out, well, how can we help them accomplish their goals?
Okay, perfect. Here's a question. You guys have that monster SMX sitting behind you. Let's take that as an example and talk a little bit about how companies can use tooling like that to make better parts. Because traditionally, most people, we all started with mills and lathes and traditional components, but today we're getting into things like the SMX machine behind you. And for anyone viewing at home, the machine is that big. I have been there in that facility. That thing is a monster. But let's talk a little bit about how a tool like that can improve the quality of making components and the benefits of using a machine like that to produce parts that traditionally may be 2 or 3 different ops on different machines.
Absolutely, Mike. Yeah, so as you mentioned, this is the SMX 3100 ST. It's a 9-axis platform. It's not your conventional 2-axis machine. It takes a little bit higher skill set to operate this. But what it does, you can reduce setup time. It's made for high mix, low volume type scenarios in most cases, okay? As you can see, left spindle, right spindle, lower turret, upper B axis with 120-degree rotation and an 80-tool ATC magazine. So what that does in your process is you have a better accurate part, or more accurate part, I should say, by being able to machine it left spindle to right spindle, lower turret, upper B axis. You can take operations down from multiple operations down to probably a couple and end up with a complete part. The coin phrase is done in one. So that's kind of the platform behind this. It does take a higher skill set. It also reduces the number of machines, the number of operators you might need. And generally, the price point is going to be higher, but your cost per part can be reduced.
Okay. It's interesting thing. You say the cost is going to be higher, but if we really math out the number of people and setups and times and operation, I don't know if you could really justify that the cost would be higher given all the extra steps that would happen, right?
You're right, Mike. Yeah, if you run it across multiple platforms, you look at the additional setups and things like that. Yeah, the cost per part can certainly be higher.
So
Mike, that's also something that we will do with customers. We'll go through an analysis of their current process, and we'll document and run those scenarios. And to your point, it allows us to do a justification where we're combining ops, leaning out the plant, because a lot of savings come because you get rid of machines and put it all into these lesser need machines. So that's one of the key things that we will help the customer in the justification. I'm glad you brought that up.
I think there's one thing real quick. We are live, so if there's any questions that come in, feel free to jump in and ask questions. Kirk, there's a couple things you mentioned there that, like, us that have been around machines and everything, like, we understand upper, lower, B, all of those things. But, we have some people that are watching that may not understand that terminology. So could you explain a little bit what we mean by that when we start talking about those components, and how they fit together? Maybe do like a little, beginner session on what that is behind you?
Yeah, I can just kind of do a point and match kind of thing. Does that work for you?
That'll be perfect.
Yeah, conventional lathe. I mean, if you're talking just a 2-axis lathe, you're going to have a main spindle and a turret, but the turret's typically going to be mounted up top, and that's your turning functions. Could be, whatever it might be, your drilling operations. But this one has left spindle and a right spindle. Okay, A and B, or 1 and 2, and then a lower turret, which offers, along combined with the upper head, we can do pinch turning. We can have that turret over there doing other operations. The B-axis, which rotates, doing functionality over here. It's, like I said, it's a complex machine, but it offers a lot of versatility.
Okay.
It's more or less a Swiss Army knife of machines at this point.
Yeah, and I think, when we start talking about how the world's changed, especially in the last 7 years, Kevin, you mentioned, or 70 years, you guys have been talking about being in business for 70 years. Can we talk a little bit about what you guys have seen as far as progression in the technology to produce goods? I mean, obviously, parts have become more complicated because everybody can design these really crazy parts in a computer now. But how has the ability to make them had to keep up to be able to produce a more complex part than maybe we had 70 years ago?
I think it comes down to a lot of what we do with you guys. And that is, when we used to work off prints, there was great complexity. You had to have great skill to be able to figure out off of these drawings. There was just a lot of moving parts there. But with the development of CAD/CAM, with solid models, everybody is doing that in their planning, literally taking it from design to manufacture. I think that's probably been the greatest leap forward, where we can really manage the entire process much better, even tying it in. Basically, it's the journey of the part, where we design it, we test it, maybe prototype it, take it into a production environment. From that standpoint, we can then automate it, and we have to measure it, and then we take it even further. But what's happening now is we're actually then getting feedback from the machines, where we can feed it back into this computerized environment, where we're monitoring or we're checking, scanning for technology purposes of the metrology. So it's come a long way in these many years.
Okay, so really the data component has created the ability to be able to handle more complex things. Would you agree with that?
Totally.
Okay.
I would say, in addition to that, Mike, the complexity of the machines has evolved as well. I mean, similar to this, but it doesn't even have to be this level of machine. So if I look back at our numbers nationally, probably 70% of the lathes that we sell are minimum live tool, Y-axis, possibly a sub-spindle type machine. And what that does, it allows the company or the operator to perform a task on that part to come out more, as a complete part. So the evolution of the machines has evolved significantly over the last number of years.
Okay. So really the sort of the goal or the transition that we've seen, and we're talking mill turns right now, but I think maybe the same could be said for 5-axis machines and stuff, is the more we can keep that part on the machine to finish it out completely, that's really sort of where the savings happen versus the traditional method of I go to a mill and a lathe and I go maybe over here to do post-processing and then I go somewhere else. We try to put in the stock and finish the part as much in one machining cell as possible.
Mike, also major transformations come in 3D printing, where we started with just doing a basic printing of plastics or other materials. Now we're printing metal. We're making very complex components that took so many operations, and now that's a very viable technology that's coming forward. And in fact, we use a printer, a small one, in our own shop here to get parts that we can't get, or put a gripper on a robot or some other things. So from the very basic printing all the way up through the most complex of like downhole tools or complex aerospace components, that's been another huge transformation over the years.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. We're standing in front of a DM machine, but you guys also provide automation, robots, and things of that nature, as well as the metal printers. So, can you talk a little bit about how that evolution has sort of happened? Is it more in the machine tending? Is it into post processing, like deburring? Like, where have you seen the world sort of go to make a better part?
Yeah, certainly, Mike. Cobots is a big thing. It's been a trend for the last number of years. So the cobots lend themselves more towards probably the light duty machine tending. But if you're doing a more industrial environment, that's where the full on industrial robot's going to come into play. With the labor force being what it is, it's become more flexible. The misperception is a lot of people think you need high volume for a cobot or a robot. That's not the case because they're so simplistic now and transportable. You can literally take a cobot or a robot from machine to machine, Halter being one of those, as well as others, where you can redeploy that robot to another machine. It's not a replacement for a human or the operator, because you need that skill set of that guy as well to be able to program that robot. But that's definitely changed over the last 5 years, and I think it's going to continue to be that way. Even some of the machines come in with built-in integration as part of the machine. Loading stackers, say on a turning center, loading and unloading. That's another example.
And Mike, as well, the tools that you guys bring. In the past, when we did our integration analysis, there was a lot of layout work. There was a lot of time study work. There was a lot of guesstimation. And with some of the tools that we have in your space, we can do that analysis digitally and with the data we have and simulate. So that's been a huge step, and we're really looking forward to even taking that further along, helping also with factory layout. But for automation, that is a real backbone, I think, to making the customer comfortable and seeing he's going to have a return on that investment.
Okay. And Todd Blacksher would agree with you. He says less setup equals more profit. He's in the process of doing that offline robot programming that you mentioned, Kevin, from our stuff to be able to improve what they do with press brakes. So, yeah, I think there's a general consensus on that. I do have a couple questions before we go to the next one. So one of the questions that I have is, what is one of the coolest projects that each of you have worked on during your time with Ellison that you can talk about, that is one of those things where you got done and it's like, you know what, that was really cool. I'm glad to be part of it.
Yeah, I'll start, Kev. I mean, what's great about this industry, Mike, is, every customer you see is uniquely different. All right. Their process is different. How they want to adapt and have their own process, and how we integrate with that. This may not answer your question 100% because there's been so many cool projects, if you will. We deal with, aerospace companies, construction companies, oil and energy companies, and they're all uniquely different. We've done large integrated, automation projects or mill turn projects. And it's always great to see the end result because you're part of that, right? But at the same time, the customer is the champion at the end of the day because they're taking it across the finish line and making it work.
I think for me, I've been so fortunate to be part of so many. Sometimes it's the smallest ones that are most satisfying because it's a small shop. He's having trouble hiring people, so we put a bunch of cobots in a job shop environment and got his production up. And is, he wasn't never not wanting to hire people. He just couldn't. And quite successful in making frac tubes, as an example. That was one. Probably the two coolest for me is we had a very large customer in energy, and we literally leaned out their entire factory, which is pretty major because it was big. But we ended up taking, probably close to 100 machines down to about 40. But what was really interesting is when we did the SAP analysis on it, we found out that what they were currently running at was over 50% non-productive time, either downtime or stuff in queue or whatever. So we were able to quantify that, and that was a very large project that we did. The other one goes kind of a ways back, but it was, like you said, cool. We did stealth coating on components for the defense industry. We had one factory in San Diego where we did stealth coating on the advanced cruise missile. And that was our own Ellison robotics company that did that. And we did another one with Northrop. So I wasn't allowed to know too much about it, so I can't tell you too much, but it was cool.
Those are always the fun ones, right?
Yeah,
The ones
yeah,
where
yeah.
we're contributing, but it's need to know.
Yeah.
We on our side, or myself and my group, we've been lucky because we've been working with you guys, gosh, for 5+ years now. We got to spend time in Charlotte and Nashville, down in Houston with you guys. And so all the projects that we got to work on that you guys supported us on, they've always been cool and amazing, from the belt buckle to the astronaut to the bowl to shot glasses that we've done with you, running through all those machines.
Yeah.
The things to me that are always impressive is how great that machine runs and how smooth they are for what type of machine that they are. I've always been super impressed by those. I think one of the things that I was going to lead to a little bit, and you mentioned a little bit earlier, because there is a project that you guys ran last year that we got to be a part of at a couple locations. It was pretty amazing. And that was the fly fishing reel for the Journey of the Part.
Yes.
Can we talk a little bit about your series that you guys have on the Journey of the Part? Because it really parallels our Make It Better series.
Yeah, absolutely. That was probably our best open house we've ever had. And it was key. And it wasn't necessarily about the machines that were here, right? It was bringing in all types of people. It was from students to company owners to engineers. And it started off, and thanks to Alex up in Wisconsin for coming up with this idea, because he is an avid fisherman, and he came up with the concept and the initial launch of it. And I think it kind of ran around its course, and everybody agreed, hey, this is a great demo. And they started it off up north and they end up down here and every other location, right? But for those that don't know what the Journey of the Part was, if you didn't attend, it was basically you got a tackle box when you walked in with a couple components that we couldn't manufacture, right? We had, a washer and a bearing, I think, that were in that box. And then each machine was numbered. So you had to go around the shop and speak with, the guys from GSC and talk about the concept, from beginning to end. And as you went around to each machine, you gathered a component for the fly fishing reel. And I think all in all, was it 17 components or 18 components, whatever it was. And at the end, you got to put it together, and that's where the camaraderie came to fruition, right? You saw little 8-10-year-old kids in here, to educators to shop owners putting together a fly fishing reel. And it was really in a small scope, actually.
And as you said, Mike, you worked with us on that, and how we got there was it started with the design and using the tools, again, of the Journey of the Part or product life cycle. So we got to show evidence of how that works. So besides making a really cool device and having people come in, they got a chance to hear about the way that products really go through that product life cycle. And the culmination was a lot of fun. And it was probably, like Kirk said, probably one of the best events I've ever been part of in my whole time with Ellison.
Yeah, they were truly amazing, and some of the team here got to go to some of those, and they came back, and that's all they could talk about is how amazing that workflow was and the feedback that they got from people. Right. And I believe you guys are doing some again later this year, right? So since you guys are nationwide, if anyone's watching, please go to Ellison and look it up, because they're going to be having more. Kevin and Kirk, can you talk a little bit more about that? What you guys are going to do this fall?
Yeah, right. At this point, Mike, it is in the schedule. We don't know what the component's going to be, but it'll kick off, and each office will do the same thing again. Not the same component, but we'll all do a Journey of the Part. Probably be something uniquely different. It'll be an engagement process, as well with GSC. Once again, and incorporate other machines and vendors that go along with it. And it's probably going to be in the fall, is what tentatively what we're looking at.
Okay. And GSC is changing its name this year, right? We did have that discussion yesterday. It's becoming part more of the Ellison family. Just to make clear for everyone that's not in the SolidWorks space, the name will be transitioning in other parts of the U.S. for Ellison as well. Is it Ellison Software Solutions? Is that what it was, Kirk?
That is correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
Recognizable and synonymous with the
Yeah.
Ellison name.
Yeah.
Across the board.
So, Kevin, you mentioned something a little bit ago I want to go back to, because when we were down there doing machine testing, we had a couple meetings, and you've mentioned a couple times about lean and virtual factory. You guys actually have a certified process to help companies improve their throughput. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Well, obviously we did the DMAIC process, which was the lean. But as far as certified process, I think we just have I'll call it a proven process. And that is where we'll meet with the customer, we'll gain all of the information, we'll get all the background, and really start to work through using tools such as SolidWorks or some of the other Adomia tools to figure out how we can combine operations or do what we do. So it depends. Sometimes it's just very simple, straightforward, improving a specific process or upgrading a couple machines. Or as I mentioned earlier, if we need to go in on a deeper dive, we'll take a team in, and it'll include our applications people, include you guys, our sales leaders. So I guess that answers it, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Kirk, you mentioned a couple of times about running like an SMX as a higher skill leveled person. Can we talk a little bit about, let's say someone sees that machine and they're like, that's what I want to do. What type of experience or knowledge would they need if that's what they want to do to become the person running an SMX or programming an SMX, or where you see the future of a machinist coming into play?
Yeah, again, great question, Mike. And the functionality of that machine is you have a turning center and a machining center and a 5-axis platform built into one. So typically the guy that's going to run this, to be your higher level guy, has experience in programming, not just a 2-axis, but probably a 5-axis multi-function type machine. Essentially, you're combining all processes into once. And it is a multi-path control. So you can split those up into different operations. So you program it as an independent spindle, if you will, which does make it a simpler process. But it's not for the meek, I guess, is the best way to put it, because you're not going to take a guy or a rookie and put him on this machine. I think you build up to this, and at the same time, we interview customers when they want this type of machine, because they want the F1 car, okay? Because they think it's going to do anything and everything. It does a lot of things really great, but it's not for everybody, okay? It's application specific. So we actually interview the customers pretty in depth. Do they have the understanding of the machine? Do they have the right people in place, to your point, Mike? Do they have the programming system to do it as well?
Yeah. I think to add to that, it's do they have good processing skills? Because you can improve a process that you don't have under control. So to Kirk's point, we have to really interview and dive in a bit deeper to find out what the skill set is on their ability, because processing on this machine still is the baseline. You have to have the baseline from the earlier machines. So, and we have a great training group. So, I mean, if we do go that route, we have a lot of people to help.
So
Good point, Kevin.
I'm hearing a theme in the answers to what makes Ellison unique. And a lot of it comes down to consultation, working with the customer, helping them along that journey to make sure that they're making the right investment for their business to be able to grow and do what they need to do, versus I'm going to go online and order a machine and it'll show up and hopefully I made the right decision. Would you guys agree that what makes you unique is your ability to help a customer throughout the journey that they go on, wherever it's going to be?
100%, Mike. It's an investment, is what it is. When anybody, whether it's a small startup job shop to a corporation or a mid-cap company, it's an investment of what they're making. Okay, and the end goal is to make it better. Okay, you have a current process, you want to improve it, you do make it better, and when we do that, we bring in our entire team. Sometimes we even have our service group come in. What are the expectations on the service level? We have engineering, we do simulation, we do automation. That all kind of combines into that to close the loop.
So I have a couple questions for you. These are not going to be machine specific or business specific. So What did you want to be when you grew up, and how did you end up at Ellison?
Oh, that's a fun one.
You go first.
I wanted to be a pilot actually when I was in high school, and I later learned when I actually went to the recruitment place for the Air Force. My dad was in the Air Force, and I went there, and I was extremely colorblind. So that whacked that opportunity to become a pilot. And the girl I was dating, actually, when I was 17, her folks owned a machine shop. And I started off as a part-time job, and it grew at that point. Became a programmer for both turning and milling, evolved. You know, and fast forward to now, I've now been in the industry for 38 years, about half the time of Kevin.
Yeah. My journey was a bit different. I went to a small college as a student athlete, but I always had interest in technical things, but yet I didn't have a technical background, and I didn't go to an engineering school. But as I started interviewing, I was always attracted to the more technical jobs, and I actually interviewed with a company called Warner Swayze, which was a premier machine builder in Cleveland, where I grew up, and I really wanted to go to work there. And they told me, well, yeah, maybe, but yeah, you don't have an engineering background. And I said, well, okay. But it turns out that the guy that made the decisions didn't either. He just said, if you can learn to learn in college, we can teach you. So I went through an apprenticeship program with them. So I was very fortunate to be able to get my dream in that way. Little did I know that all these years later, I'd be in this industry doing all these things, and they continue to be exciting and fun and innovative. And what's really, really important, what's been important to me is that we're in a relevant industry, relevant business. We truly help people make things better, safer, and kind of the world goes around by a lot of what we do. We're kind of a small industry, but we're kind of a big cog in the wheel. So I guess I was very lucky. And, you know, I guess my advice is for people, just decide what you want to do and go and have a look at different things. In fact, you can even call us. We're always looking for good people.
And that was going to be my follow-up question,
Okay.
Kevin. You got me to it. Is if
Sorry.
someone's interested in wanting to follow a journey like this, where would they go? How would they start? What would be intriguing? Let's say I went to mechanical engineering, but I know that I need to learn how to make parts so that way I can be a better engineer. And all the experience that you two have, you know, decades at this point, where have you seen that boundary sort of, I don't know, go away a little bit, where it used to be engineering, hard wall, then manufacturing? How have you seen that change and evolve? And like, what opportunities would be for someone that may be interested in this, but don't know where to start?
Well, if you're talking about with our company, we actually, out of necessity, created an internal job source company. We utilize that service and capability not only to help our customers find people, but ourselves as well. So that, if you're looking to come to us. But the other is trade schools. We have found that many trade schools come to us. Certainly here, I'm not sure, I'm probably elsewhere, and it's a great place for the young people to go that don't need to go to college, don't want to go to college. In many respects, could get a much better job going that route. So that's another source. Internships with companies. So that's a great way to get in. People want to hire just good people. They'll train them as long as they're willing to work and have a reasonable skill set.
Kirk, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, on the backside of that, yeah, we get you know, a local school here, which is Lone Star College. They'll invite themselves over or come to our open house and bring kids through, and they're actually a customer of ours as well. They have some DN machines in place as well as others, but it's not uncommon for them to come over and look at our showroom and have us speak to them about what the career opportunities are and the growth scale of where you can go with this. And it's pretty it's unlimited of what you can do. If you want to be an operator, programmer, engineer, company owner, whatever it might be, or even work at Ellison. which is a great career for many. So that's one platform, or as Kevin mentioned, an apprentice program within a company. It's always a good launching pad as well.
Okay. There's a couple things, Kevin, like we're going to be down next week chatting with you and Kirk about a few things. And, we talk about your office and the amazing space that you guys have. Let's talk a little bit about, within the confines here about the factory of the future and what you guys see as far as connectivity and a showcase.
Thanks for that question. When we started our digital transformation journey, we really found that we had great partners from GSC and you guys. We had great feedback from our machine builders, but they kind of hit the wall. They would want to offer maybe a capability for the machine, but as long as it's on their machine. So what our intent is to be able to show the machines with agnostic type of monitoring or other tools, and create, if you will, kind of a virtual factory within our walls here. With the software that we will be able to utilize, with the monitoring be able to utilize, we have automation, robotics here. Our goal will be to simulate what a small factory or even a job shop floor would look like. And again, taking those tools all the way into potentially enterprise level, MES, ERP. But for now, we just want to make this place a good place for people to want to come and see how this can be done. And then it also fosters bringing in speakers, people to talk about more about operational in the industry, rather than just what's the ball screw size or how many horsepower does this have. That's important, but in the solution, we're excited because we think we're going to bring a much broader enterprise solution to our customers.
Okay, so bring the theory of the sales and the white paper to something people can see and touch, and ask the questions.
Well said.
So we have a few more minutes here. If anyone has any questions, please jump in. I know we've been asking some as they've come up here a little bit. Kevin and Kirk, where do you see manufacturing going in the next 10, 15, 20 years?
20 years out might be a stretch, but I think in the coming years, I think on the coattails of what Kevin's talking about with the digital transformation, I think we're going to see a major shift in the next 5 years with AI and other things to that degree. Our partner, corporate wide, which is DN Solutions, they're making huge investments into technology on machines. Okay, they have a new tech center that's going to be in Schaumburg, Illinois. They've made major investments overseas into their factories to invest into technology. And 10 years out, I think that's just going to double and triple as we go out. It's getting a little blurred, going that far out. But I think the digital transformation is a big part of that. Automation is going to be another major factor in that. And technology-based machines is going to be critical.
Similar answer. Again, I tend to look at things more operationally these days. The machines and machining is kind of taking care of itself. We've talked about how we can help people make things and make things better. And so we continue to do that. But what I'm learning is that customers like the majors, OEs, they want to be connected with their supply chain. And so that has to be done digitally. They want to be able to send out packets of information that has all the files, but it's all digital. And I think it's just headed that direction. And the communications between the companies, it's going to become more difficult for those that don't absorb that. But I think the opportunity is, I think that's where it's really headed. And AI is a whole another part of all of this. And I can't say I could even slightly predict what the outcome of that's going to be, but the more I read and see about it, it could be a real powerful tool to really transforming the digital transformation. So.
Yeah, to me, from what I've seen talking with lots of people over the last several years, it seems like the amount of data that's going to be transferred and shared is going to continue to expand, right? How I want to build it, when I want to build it, where I want to build it. And the only way to successfully transfer that data is to have everyone talking on a common language or a common space, if you will. And I think suppliers, one thing we've learned from, 2020 on is no supplier wants to get caught with their pants down these days. So they want to be sort of surprise proof, meaning that they expect anyone that's supplying goods to be as transparent as possible.
Yeah. Well said.
There was, we talked about it a little bit, but I want to talk about it a little bit more. The one thing that we have talked about, is you guys have been partners with us for over 5 years now in 3D Experience World. Next year, it's going to be in Houston again. And I think we have plans where we're going to work together, and we still got to figure out which machine and those components are going to work well for the show. But, looking at the SMX and listening to you guys talking about it, and I think there's a new machine coming out this year. It seems like we should probably step up our game too, to be a little more complex than what we've traditionally done with the 5-axis. Would you guys agree with that?
I agree. Because that is kind of I don't want to say the trend, but it is the future. And maybe you're referring to the DNX platform as well as many others within our lineup. So that's one of them. And I think that's going to be around in July or so when that's going to hit our floor. A multifunction type machine at an entry-level cost for guys that are stepping up from a basic platform and getting into that realm of multitasking, if you will.
Yeah, and I was referring to the DNX. I just wanted to make sure, since it is coming out, timeframes and things like that. But I know we're excited to hopefully get a little stick time with you guys on it when it shows up.
Sure.
The one thing that I will say, as we're sort of wrapping up here at the end, is if anyone's thinking about getting into a career or getting into, the process of making it better, helping companies improve what they do, Ellison and all of our experiences for the last 5+ years has been amazing in everything that they do. Every office that we've been to has, pretty much been the same, to open up and let us ask questions and do trial and error. And Kevin and Kirk are no exception. They let us spend a week there, sometimes really late at night, doing machine testing. So if you're interested in getting into machining and manufacturing, you should definitely give those guys a look, because everything that they do is top notch. With that, Kevin and Kirk, what are your final thoughts? Like, what would you leave with someone that is watching today and thinking, maybe manufacturing's for me?
Now, I'll say this, Mike. Excuse me. We have 17 offices around the country. If you are intrigued by any of this, go to your local office, whether it be California, Seattle, Minnesota, wherever. Look it up for your local area and invite yourself in and have somebody step you through and go through the process of what it is and what it's about, right? From the ground level manufacturing to engineering or even service department, whatever it might be. Or just go to the EllisonTechnologies.com site and peruse through there. There's career opportunities in there as well. You can hit that spot. We're social media, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, all over the place. So you can engage on there as well. As some of these individuals, we can certainly take them out to a machine shop if they want to see at that level as well. Introduce them to some other owners and operators and get them engaged at that level.
I think you said it all.
He said it all. Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you.
Well, I can't thank you guys enough for taking time out of your really busy schedules, because you guys are always out helping customers and things like that. I appreciate the time that you spent with us. For everyone else watching, our series of Manufacturing Live is now Make It Better. Next month, we actually have Todd Blacksher from Metalworks. He'll be on with us, and we'll be geeking out over robotics. So Kevin and Kirk, thank you guys so much for your time. I will see you all next week in your office.
Thank you, too.
Sounds great, Mike.
Thank you.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, take care.